Test. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Prior to the start of public hearings that will be held. There is a public hearing. Consider ordinance 13. Public hearing.
Other than what you had in your packets, it's really a simple code for lighting. It's got 3 elements that we're looking at. Let me just go over those particular items. It's going to add all outdoor lighting fixtures shall be set back a minimum of 3 feet from the property line. All outdoor fixtures shall be directed or shielded so that direct light rays are not visible beyond the property line. And then in no case shall the luminance level from any outdoor lighting fixture individually or combined measure above 0.2 foot candles at any location beyond the property line. This is for residential development only. We do have a commercial lighting code already in place, but this would be just some items that we would put into the outdoor lighting ordinance in Chapter 18, and then it would be implemented through through the building permit process, the electrical permit process when they take out lightings. The anticipation was that the building inspector would notify the homeowners of this code so that they can, if they have outdoor lighting, that they put it in properly.
If anyone would like to be
Doesn't
heard
wanna
at
go?
the public hearing. And staff will have.
Someone's coming up there.
Thanks. Yes, Alan Nepper, N16 W29838, Brookstone Circle. I'm in the High Point subdivision, and I'd like to, both for the town and for the Plan Commission, I would like to spin out a positive real quick. I am initially impressed with the berm that is along Glen Cove. I am right to the west of that, and it actually looks pretty good. I'm impressed. We get some tall trees and some shrubs and some foliage and things on that. I think it's going to be a good thing to block a lot of what's going on or light pollution from our subdivision, which is adjacent. With that, though, I'd just like to express that I think something does need to be done on the lighting issue, and I will give a very real-world example. And this is not new construction. This is existing. I had a new neighbor move in October, and apparently thinks that we need searchlights and we need fences and all sorts of things based on where they lived the last time. There is a motion-activated light that if you literally drive down the street, the light comes on, and it shines directly into my dining room and living room. And I don't even know, how a person driving down the street would deal with this light that comes on instantly. It's not aimed at the driveway. It's not aimed at the pad outside the garage or anything else. It is aimed absolutely, positively, horizontally into my front yard and the 2 front windows of my house. Obviously, what do you do about an existing structure that is totally beyond any reasonable neighborly parameters? I don't know. But I am now living with this, and it's a quality of life issue, and I just hope again that something can be done with a lighting ordinance going forward, especially with the new subdivision, next to us, that it will help us be good neighbors, help them be good neighbors, and increase our quality of life. So that's my experience, and I appreciate that that we can get something going on the lighting ordinance. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Terry Mahoney, W290 and 2171 Happy Hollow Road. Terry Mahoney Ogden, I should say. And Town of Delafield Supervisor. I'm just taking the moment to kind of just talk to the Plan Commission, because this is, in some respects, it's a little backwards because we brought it up and now it's coming to you. But certainly Plan Commission has seen lighting ordinances before. And I feel really passionately about this, and I want to just express, it's part of what, when I ran, it was to talk about, one of the issues was how can we bring the lake country and make it feel more country? And one of the things is lighting. I think we're, with all the progress and with the new development and new homes becomes, there's new lighting. Builders are always bringing in, people want to light up their lights. It's just, and I think it's actually not even the problem of the homeowner. I hear the story that Mr. Knepper here just mentions, that you go to the store, it's hard to find a light these days because they're either full of color or you can't turn them off. And so I think more the reason that we need to have guidance on so that's fundamentally in general. I personally would love to see a lighting ordinance in our entire town. We worked on that as a committee. We actually, Tim Barbeau did an awesome job, had a great ordinance drafted. We used some neighboring communities. Shaniqua was one of the examples. I was just there the other day. I went outside and you could actually see the stars. It was fabulous. It's what we used to have in the town of Delafield. Tim did a great job and did a lighting ordinance. Then as a group, we kind of decided, but I'm saying this is important because we have a new board now. And that, maybe it is time to revisit. We took this ordinance, we decided though, maybe we couldn't do it for everybody, but we'll start with new subdivisions. And, but again, I still feel like it should be new construction. It could be if we're doing it, let's make it new construction. So I'm saying to you, we've got a new board, have at it. I'm pro anything we can do to help avoid light pollution in our community. Specifically, why it became an issue is when we did meet with Newman Development and Brian Lindgren, and we were going through the docs, bylaws and the covenants and restrictions. Brian certainly said, I think it was June 24th of this past year, of course he would abide by any kind of lighting ordinance that we had in place. We didn't have one, so I think more the reason we knew that we needed to get something involved, something in place, so that otherwise it could be anything if we don't put any kind of lighting ordinance in place. So now is our time. So we kind of, Tim had this great ordinance, we kind of softened it. Again, I still feel like there's room for a little bit more strength, but we have something that at least is enforceable for any new residential subdivision, and that's kind of how it's written. Again, I think there's nothing to be said we can't be on anything new. I think what we're seeing, whether you're in the south part of the town and you've got spotlights galore on big open lands, whether you're on the north, on the lake, people are building new homes and lighting it up like nobody's business. I mean, it's the spotlights. I think now is the time to little steps at a time, but again, if Planning Commission wants to take this and run with it even further, I think you've got support, at least from some of us if not all of us, I don't know for sure, on the town board to strengthen our lighting ordinance. For sure for residential subdivisions. Next step would be for any new residents, and then really what can we do as a town in a whole to maintain our rural character and decrease light pollution. So I just kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of a history. Certainly, you've seen it before with, it came to your attention, I think, an ugly way with when we tore down all the trees and when the church got built and then all that lighting went. I think obviously the Plan Commission in town got a lot of flack. So now we know, we created the business lighting ordinance, and now step by step, I think, what can we do? And any other questions, I'm involved in it and happy to work with anybody more on lighting. And thank you.
Joe Wolfley, N20W30060, Glen Cove, on the town board as well. Just as far additional background from what Supervisor Mahoney-Ogden just mentioned, part of my concern with any of the lighting ordinance piece is enforceability. Shaniqua has a police department. They have someone that can go out and check and write tickets and do this stuff at night, and we do not have that, and that's my biggest hiccup. I agree. I would prefer to see a whole lot of things around lighting ordinances, but also we need a way that it can be enforced and it can be taken care of, because what I don't want to have happen is get a ordinance on the books that the town can't actually enforce, and that then we get angry calls from neighbors about not following that ordinance and not following up on the enforcement of the ordinance. So that'd be my addition to my concerns with a lighting ordinance that goes beyond what we had discussed, because what we had discussed with the town board was a potential ordinance that was enforceable by the HOA. And actually, I was happy to cast a vote on that to approve it, as was Supervisor Michaels at the time. We didn't bring it forward to a vote. And so that's my concern with something that's not got enforceability outside of what the town is, or without something to implement the ability for the town to enforce that ordinance. So that'd be it. Thank you.
Public hearing. Following the public hearing schedule. Of the We Energy Building, tax EELT 08039.
I'll give a general overview of that, and the applicant is here if you want to hear from that applicant at any time. Either they can speak at the public hearing, or they can speak at the time that it comes up on the agenda. But this is it's an M1 district. It is just, as we said, on Highway 18, just west of the We Energy site. The proposal is to create storage buildings on that site, 9 storage buildings. The anticipation is that some of those units, or many of those units, will be made into a condo, as opposed to just rental. They'll be owner occupied, if you want to call it that way. For those units, there'll be of various sizes. They have various size buildings, various size facilities that they're going to be putting in. There's a number. This does require. We're looking at this as a self-storage facility, conditional use, and that's why we're here at the public hearing. There's a number of elements that need to be identified, or need to be met as part of conditions of the conditional use, and I'll go through those at the time that we discuss this. That's on the agenda. But generally speaking, the plan of operation is just that they would be open 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. It would have obviously storage units. They have security lighting that they're going to. Security cameras that they're going to have on site. They have some fencing that not around the entire site, but around the front portion, the southerly portion of the site. They provided a landscape plan. They've provided a grading plan. There's a requirement because of the amount of hard surfaces that they'll have to get a permit from the Waukesha County Land Resources Division for a stormwater pond, and we have not, they've submitted the information, but we have not heard anything back from Waukesha County. We can talk about the architecture of the building. It's basically a metal building, or all the buildings will be metal siding with metal roof. That does go, I mean, our code says that you can't have metal structures. We can talk about that a little bit. There is a requirement, I said, for landscaping. Their landscaping, they've got a number of trees that they're going to be, about 25 trees that they're going to be putting in, pine trees. And whether that meets our requirements, we'll have to discuss that. They had proposed wall pack lighting for the front of the buildings, the sides that would have the garage doors. I've indicated to the owner that we don't accept wall packs. We want lighting that is shielded out there. So there's some issues that we'll have to discuss as a plan commission as we move forward on this. So that gives just a general idea of what's being proposed, and maybe we can hear from the public as to what they think then.
With respect to the public hearing, is there anyone who please approach the podium?
Good evening, Scott Flogger, West 33650 US Highway 18 in Delafield. I rise to speak in opposition to this. This area is already very saturated in self-storage. Immediately south of this facility in Genesee, there are well over 300 self-storage units down there on Wolf Road. There's a brand-new facility that just went up in the last 2 years that is currently sitting at 50% occupancy or less. There is another self-storage facility immediately east of this property that is also sitting at roughly 50 to 70% occupancy. I have concerns with the investment in this area, that this would detour from the rustic aspect of the town of Delafield, of this area. There's been a lot of investment made in maintaining that rustic area there. Also, the property almost immediately across the street from We Energies, due west of the body shop slash hot rod shop there, is also slated to be a self-storage facility. So once again, I rise to the fact that this would be very saturated. There's also a brand-new national self-storage facility being built across the street from the old Roundy's facility that will also take business from this area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Call to order the planning commission meeting.
Aye.
Any opposed? The next item on the agenda is communications for discussion and possible action. Blakey, are there any new? Okay, so there are no new communications. Unfinished business, none. And then the next matter on the agenda is new business. So we're going to take these out of order, because one of them may take longer than the others. It'll be A, C, B, or is the order. So the first item on the agenda is 5A, consideration and possible action on a request from Dale Bergman, developer for Hawks Haven subdivision, for approval of an entrance sign to Hawks Haven subdivision on Rookery Road.
All right, what I have on the screen is the location of Hawks Haven. It's a subdivision that's north of Hawks Nest on Rookery Road. It's just a subdivision, or a cul-de-sac subdivision that was created a number of years ago. If you see Lot 1 on the kind of the middle left, there's a blue circle. That's where the location of the sign will be. It will be on Lot 1. The sign is shown here. This will be a 30-inch by 30-inch metal sign. The frame is a little bit larger. The frame is about 37 by 37 inches. The height's going to be about 5.5 feet. The Plan Commission is required to basically determine the appropriate size of the sign based on the design of the sign and its impact on traffic safety, compatibility with the adjacent uses. And I also just want to mention, for those that are new here, we do have a requirement that the town of Delafield be placed on the sign, and of course they have that on there. I have reviewed this matter. I don't think the sign is excessive in any means. The sign is going to be located outside the right-of-way, so it won't have any impact on traffic. I consider it compatible with the adjacent land uses because it, in essence, identifies the subdivision, which is pretty common with almost all of our subdivisions. And so then I recommend approval of the sign as proposed.
Anyone who wishes to speak on this?
I don't think Mr. Bergman's here.
Okay. Any discussion?
Pretty straightforward. It's out of the right, it's out of our right of way. It's not going to impede traffic. So I would make a motion to approve the sign as submitted in the email sent by Dale Bergman to Engineer Barbeau on November 14th, 2024.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then the next item will be.
I'll make a motion that we take item C out of order.
Okay, thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So item 5C, so consideration and possible action on a request from Scott Flagger, APC Properties, for approval of a sign height variance for a proposed sign to be located at S13 W33650 Highway 18, associated with Lake Country Mini Storage, Mission Custom Jeep Upgrades, and Veterans Electric.
All right, on the screen, I do have the location of the sign as well as the business. It's off of 18. There's a long driveway back to a building that's the Veterans Electric building. There's mini storages are adjacent, or just adjacent to the drive through there on the west side of the drive. The sign is proposed to look similar to this. And there's really a request for a height variance for this sign. It's a freestanding sign. And there's a requirement in the code that basically says that we have to create a diagram. Oops, sorry. That if you set up like a 5 foot height at the center of the road, and then the height of the building, the closest building, there's a area, a line that you would create that would allow, that's the area where you can put in the height of the sign. And so in doing that, the required, or the allowable height is 2.66 feet. and the request for the height of the sign is going to be 5.58 feet. I did take into account, some of the land drops down a little bit where the sign's going to be located. The road's a little higher than that, but I took that into account. The sign itself meets the requirements of the code, where they are allowed 80 square feet of signage there, and that's mainly in the area where you actually see the sign, the words, and the boxes for the sign itself. We don't count the columns, or we don't count the roof for the area. However, we do look at the height of the sign when it's related to that. But the area, the actual text of the sign is 64 square feet. So the criteria that we're supposed to use in looking at variances, I'll just read those. There's area enhancements, where the sign as proposed will not result in an undue concentration of signage, which renders it difficult or confusing to read existing signs, or that the proposed sign is unique and of exceptional design or style so as to enhance the area, or if there's site difficulties, unusual site factors that preclude the construction of the sign in accordance with the code. After my review, I determined that the sign will not result in a concentration of signs in the area. It's a pretty rural area, not many signs, especially in the town portion of it. There's really no unusual site factors that preclude the construction in accordance with the location, that you can meet the sign code requirement. Though I do say that the sign is unique in that it contains this roof truss element, which is above the sign, that matches the truss design feature that's both on the Veterans Electric building as well as the storage unit buildings. And then the stone pillars that are on both sides actually match the stone pillars that are located in front of the Veterans Electric building. That building is set quite a ways off the road, but there is some continuity between the two. And so the truss and the stone pillars kind of tie the sign into the whole design of the development, and I feel like it enhances the look of the whole thing. So I'm recommending that the Plan Commission approve the variance of 2.92 feet in height, and then also approve the proposed freestanding sign as shown on the mock-up that was prepared by Pinot Builders, dated 6/23/24. That was in your packets.
So are we basically just talking about the roof is,
The height, yeah.
the height of the roof?
The height, yeah, the sign is higher than we would normally allow for this. And so we would allow just under 3 feet of additional height. And I kind of attribute that to that truss element of it, which gives it a little bit more character in my mind. I mean, you have to evaluate that yourself, but gives it a little bit more character, and it matches with the buildings. It's not just a random feature on there. It does tie the buildings together.
I understand you said the area of the sign is less than the.
Yeah, I mean, the sign portion, the only portion that we count towards the text, in essence, is the text portion, which is just where it has the Lake Country Mini Stores, the Mission Custom Upgrades, Veterans Electric. That portion, those panels are the ones that I measure for the area of the sign. And I put a box around that whole thing, and that's the area of the sign. That's how we measure it according to our code. But the height, we have to look at the whole thing for the height on that. I mean, in the extreme case, we don't want the sign to meet it, but then it goes 50 feet up in the air or something like that. So we have a limitation on the height.
Then is Town of Delafield technically on the sign?
I don't count that as being part of the sign itself.
Okay. I know there's a requirement that it's on the sign.
It's on the sign. That is going to be on the sign, yes.
Okay.
This is.
But that's not part of the 80 square feet that's allowable.
I don't
in
count that because we require that as part of the code. No, for the most part, it's usually not a significant, the text is not as big, but it's big enough for people to read.
I was just making sure there's no issues with,
No, they could put it on the top, the bottom, just so it's there. It's readable, so. And the reason we do that is just to make sure people know where they're at. Give us some identity. A lot of people don't know where the boundaries of the town of Delafield is, and it was a way to kind of identify businesses within our town that we're proud to have, glad to have here.
this is a comment mostly because I like grammar, but it's whether or not they want, and this is up to the owner, whether they want a lowercase the of in the town of Delafield. I think technically it should be a lowercase. You might want to mention it to them just for grammatical. Otherwise, it'll just annoy me when I drive. That's fine. So.
Duly noted.
Thank you. You can annoy me when you drive past, it's fine, but I'm just pointing it's grammatically incorrect. So, all right. Anything else? Any other discussion? Or anyone who wants to speak on this?
No, I think that to Engineer Barbeau's report, it's unique, it ties into the architecture of the buildings that are there, and I would recommend and make a motion that we grant the 2.92-foot height variance for this sign as proposed on the sign mock-up prepared by Pino Buildings dated 6/23/24.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you. The next item for discussion is the consideration and possible action on a request from John Burgett, North by Northwest Storage, for a conditional use permit to construct storage units located off Highway 18, west of the We Energies building, tax key DELT 0843998002. Mr. Robo, excuse me.
Okay, this one is a little bit challenging in that there's a lot going on here. Well, let me get to it here. So this is the site outlined in red. It's actually west of the previous item that we just discussed, west of the We Energy site. It's a vacant site except for a small unoccupied shed in the middle of that property. If you can see it there where the 002 is. There is a residential home to the west that is in the town of Delafield. This is right on the edge of the town of Delafield. This is in the M1 zoning district. And in the M1 zoning district, we do allow self-storage facilities as conditional uses. With conditional uses, we have to do a pretty detailed evaluation of conditional uses, and in doing so, we have to make sure that the applicant provides substantial evidence to all of our conditions that are in that particular conditional use document, as well as the M1 district on that. So I've prepared, and it should be in your packets, a decision sheet, and I'd like to go through that. I know that the public cannot see this, but I'm going to try to work our way through this along with the town board here. And we'll just work our way down. If you have questions, let me know. And what I'm reading off of is just a number of conditions, and then whether or not there's substantial evidence, and then whether or not that condition is met or not. So the lot must be at least 3 acres. The lot is actually 10.29 acres, and so that particular condition is met. Building location, base height, and area regulations meet M1 zoning. This is going to be done in 2 phases. The first phase is the first 4 buildings. What I'll do is I'll just go to this site plan here. So it's the first 4 buildings that are on the south end. And so there's really no issue right now with the open space. It's like 81.45% because the northern side will not be built at this time. It'll be part of phase 2. But when you look at the entire development and the information that was submitted, we actually end up with 54.97% open space, which is about 131 square feet short of what it should be. I'm sure that can be taken care of as part of Phase 2, but I just wanted to point that out, that condition has to be addressed when Phase 2 gets submitted. Condition 3, or C, was in relationship to the buildings. It says, the condition is that, it says that it has to consist of quality materials such as brick, wood, stone, decorative concrete, block, and glass. The Plan Commission may allow the use of metal building components and EIFS if it is incidental or screened from public view. Metal siding shall not be allowed. Pitch roof must be 412 or steeper. Garage doors must face the interior of the interior, and then this color scheme has to be shown on the plans and samples. So the issue with this one is that they're proposing a fully metal building, metal ribbed siding, and a metal roof. There is some brick that's going to be on the southern buildings, kind of facing Highway 18. It's going to wrap around the buildings by about 20 feet. There's only 2 buildings that are going to have that, and that's near the entrance of the site there. So I have that marked as not being met at this time. So that's probably, we can discuss that. I'll just continue going through and we can come back to it if you want to, but I don't know what we do with this. I mean, the code says metal siding shall not be allowed. I don't have any flexibility on that. They're asking for a signed and sealed plat of survey. The design engineer did stamp and sign the site plan. Access from 18, there has to be access from a public street. This is US Highway 18, so the DOT is part of the permit. The applicant has talked to the DOT and gotten verbal approval for the location of the access point. Matter of fact, initially they anticipated that they were going to come straight off of 18 and go straight into the site. You can kind of see from the site plan that they had to shift that driveway further to the east. However, I don't have a copy of the actual permit or any email or anything from the DOT on that particular item yet. I anticipate that would come at some point in time. Now, there's a couple of things that, when I did this, I didn't have the plan of operation, which we received just prior to this being sent out. But they've indicated that they will not have any outside storage. The plan of operation, I'm on letter G, the plan of operation does state that they will have some limited restrooms. So they'll need water, and they'll need a permit for septic, but we don't have that yet. Under H, the hours of operation, we require no more than 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Sunday, and they have indicated that in their plan of operation that they will meet that. Let's see, exterior of all structures, fences, planting screens shall be kept in good condition. We would anticipate that they would do that. They've stated that they will have a contractor, probably a separate contractor, maintaining the buildings and the site. We don't allow appurtenances placed on the roof of any of the units unless it's screened from view. There will be nothing on the roof, at least nothing is shown on the plans. We require under letter K, perimeter security fencing provided for safety and electronic surveillance. We even say security lighting from dusk to dawn is required. Fencing shall be ornamental decorative fencing. We didn't want any like chain link type fencing. When walls or fencing is used, plant material shall be placed intermittently along the wall or fence to soften the effect of the wall or fence. This is another one where they've got fencing that is, and I believe I don't know if it shows up on one of the drawings. I don't think I have it here. On these that I have here. So Anyway, there is some fencing that is on the south side of the buildings that kind of wraps, into the front. And so other than the roadway coming in, there's just a 3-foot high, 3-rail, what is that, a 5-foot tall, 3-rail, heavy white PVC fence that would be in front of those buildings. Not necessarily security fencing, but it's probably decorative fencing more so. But it does kind of block the entire frontage of the lot, except for the driveway going in. Under L, landscaping must meet the following standards. All lands has to be landscaped and kept in good condition. The landscape features should provide sufficient screening to shield adjacent properties and roadways from adverse effects of the facility and shield the development from negative impacts on adjacent uses or streets. They did have provide a landscape plan, and in that landscape plan, which I'll show you here, they've got sporadic trees that are around. They're kind of noted as you can kind of see this symbol here. That's kind of the ones that are noted, and they're placed sporadically around. I think I measured about roughly 65 feet. 55 to 140 feet spacing with those trees. There are some areas in front of the building, on the south side of the buildings, that have like a 3-foot planting area on the south side of the 2 front buildings that will have plantings. They didn't have a planting plan for those 2 areas at this time, though they said that they would be hiring a landscape architect to design that, and they can provide that to us at some future time. All right, we're almost through it here. I'm on letter M. We talk about a little bit that the site and operational plan shall include design features necessary to ensure traffic generated does not have an adverse effect on existing or planned roads. Once again, this access is onto US 18. They got to get DOT approval. And so once we get that would satisfy that particular condition. The plan of operation submitted indicated that there won't be any noise, vibration, odors produced by this particular use. We talked a little bit about hours of operation, but there's nighttime security lighting. They did indicate that they will have cameras out there on the buildings, so that will be part of their security system that's out there. And then there is lighting on the garage doors, and for that lighting, they didn't show us like what the foot candles spread of the lighting is, so we're kind of missing that portion of it. And then there's some conditions that were actually in the M1 district, control of odor, fire and explosives, glare, heat, and external lighting, those kinds of things we've talked about already. We got water quality standards that are required. Once again, we're going to have a stormwater management pond that's going to handle our water quality out there. They indicated that there will be no noise, substantial noise on that site. It's a storage facility, so they don't anticipate substantial noise or vibration. And once again, the traffic impact would only be at Highway 18, and once again, I'm deferring that to the DOT. They would have to evaluate whether or not that they want that. So that's a review. There's a couple of things that are still, that I would say are needed substantial evidence. We have to talk a little bit about the metal building. We could talk about the use. We really didn't talk about the use. The use is really for storage. And once again, it's a condo unit, some heated units, some not. But it will be it's indicated that it will be a storage facility. No overnight resident, or no staying overnight, and they've indicated that. And they would indicate that as part of their condominium declarations as no overnight stays and no living there. It wouldn't be living quarters for that. So I said there's a lot to this because there's also, we can look at the site plan and things like that, the different plans that were provided. So the site plan that was provided, they meet all the requirements for building setback, offset, height, lot size, lot width. And then I discussed open space, they can meet that. The grading plan for this, the southerly portion of the site drains to the east towards We Energies, and then there's a pretty wide ditch that runs along the east side of the property on the We Energies site, that's where the water would go. That's where it goes right now, and then that goes to the north. Most of the site will drain towards the stormwater pond that you see up on the screen. That's further to the north. Part of this land is in the Waukesha County shoreline jurisdiction. It's that kind of that diagonal line here. That's Waukesha County jurisdiction on that side. So they'll be doing a review of this particular development as well. I don't think they need a conditional use for this, but they will have some review authority for that, as well as the stormwater. Our code also requires a landscape and lighting plan. I mentioned that before. The plan of operation has been submitted, and then the architectural plans. Basically, they've indicated that the colors will be, the building is going to be a light gray ribbed metal wall panel. The lower 3.5 feet will be a dark gray, so it's like a wainscot, dark gray around it. I said the south elevations will have this like light and dark gray cultured stone that's going to wrap around the building. Around each, the access doors, not the garage doors, the access doors, there'll be a canvas canopy over those access doors. And then there are some small windows. I don't know if I show the, yeah, you can see the windows in the elevation opposite the garage doors. This is on the opposite side. There are windows along the opposite side of the building for those. This particular, the phase one basically only has 4 buildings, and all the doors face inside, which is a requirement that we had. All the doors face the roadway itself, so there will be no garage doors on the outside that you would see as you're driving west on Highway 18. So I think I've addressed all my items. My recommendation, or at least at this point, I think we need to talk about some of these things, get some input maybe from the owner developer as to what we're going to do, or what they're going to do to meet these requirements. And then I think we could consider tabling this to get more information. And then at that point in time, then I would create a conditional use permit, and ultimately we would make a recommendation to the town board for their consideration at an upcoming meeting. Okay, I've said a lot, so I'll answer questions if I can, or we have the applicant here.
Is this just for phase one that we're discussing?
That's a good question. I mean, we have the architecture for the phase one, but it's going to be similar to phase two. We don't really have we have phase two. They're going to grade phase two, but they're not going to build those buildings until at some future time.
Because there's a size problem for phase two, correct?
There's a minor open space issue on this plan, but that, once again, if we table it, that plan could be tweaked so that they meet the requirement. They only need 131 square feet of open space, so they take off some asphalt, so it's not a big, I don't consider it a big deal, other than I can't approve the plan as it is because it doesn't show that it meets the requirement.
Right.
I think the way we could write the conditional use is approval of phase one, and then we approve the phase one plans, shall we say, and then the conditional use could say that there will be a phase two, but they should come back for some kind of an approval for phase two architecture, and then any changes in the site plan that might take place for that. So we could write, I guess what I'm saying is we could write a conditional use that'll cover the whole use of it, so we give them the full use of what they want to do, but they should come back with their site plans when they decide phase two comes back in.
And in your recommendation right now is tabling until we have enough information, because there's a number of items,
Yeah,
like 5 or 6 that say, no information provided, no information provided, your information could have easily been provided.
I could address that.
Some, and let me just answer that quick. Some of it was plan of operation, which it was past the time I had my report done, but I think there are some things that are, things that I think are important. What are we gonna do with this whole issue of the building? I mean, this metal building versus non-metal building. The landscaping, to me, seems, it's sporadic, it's sparse. I mean, it's up to the plan commission, is that adequate? Is that security fencing adequate? I think that those are things that have to be decided, so they can, we can say, I mean, do we want a line of trees down the east side of the site or something, so we can block these buildings a little bit, or?
Well, and it says, the code's clear, metal siding shall not be allowed. It's not, there's no provocation there. Shall.
Right. And I mean, if there's argument and the planning commission wants to change that code, that we could look at changing that code.
So we can have metal buildings all over the town of Delafield?
For different uses, maybe so. I mean, it's a policy issue by the town, by the board, or by the plan commission, by the board.
How do you say yes this time and no every other time?
Right.
I mean, that's what we've always had,
Right.
is the issue of
Right.
it being precedent. I mean, it's just the code's clear, so it's like we have to change the code to allow metal siding.
Correct.
And so this isn't just a situation of a conditional use permit, it's asking us to violate the code.
Right, I'm not saying that, no. But I'm trying to get some feedback to say, is there any,
I think the concern
Any
is
feel
tabling
on-
this and
on
not
the
giving the
plan commission's-
applicant the fair notice that if they come back with a metal building, it won't matter. I think that's the,
yeah.
I think the owner, if you want to approach the podium,
thank
sir.
you.
You can
Sorry,
raise your hand while
maybe-
you're talking all you want, but
I'm
not
sorry,
calling you.
maybe I should have got up during the public hearing. So my name is Al Hulick. I'm here representing Mr. John Burgett, who unfortunately is under the weather and asked me to attend tonight for the public hearing. So Al Hulick, here you go, Michelle. 341 North Clear Lake Avenue, Milton, Wisconsin. So Mr. Barbeau, I was able to read his report, and I discussed it with the owner of the property today, and we do intend to meet those conditions. Essentially, we submitted our proposal, Mr. Barbeau came back with his responses, we recognized those, and then with the holidays, we just couldn't get everybody coordinated at the same time in order to provide kind of new information for tonight. So we fully anticipated this item being tabled. We fully anticipated coming back with revised renderings, materials, landscaping if necessary, lighting. It was just it was a matter of it didn't happen over the kind of the Christmas break. So certainly we're not asking for you to amend your ordinances to allow metal buildings. We understand that that's the requirement. When the architect drew up the plans, should have addressed that at that time, so there wasn't this item that had, kind of got placed before you, but that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to assure you, we certainly understand what those conditions are and are absolutely, willing to meet those conditions, based on your ordinances, and discussions with previous Administrator Green and Mr. Marbeau. So, certainly don't need to look at amending ordinances, certainly respect the shall versus, may. And in terms of the fencing, conversations back and forth, during the design phase was, do we need to wrap the whole site? Do we need to just give the appearance of the site being wrapped? And I think at the time, it was, well, just show us what you typically do. So we have these facilities in multiple locations throughout the state and other states as well. Some have fencing all the way around it, others don't. It just depends on the municipality. So certainly not asking the town of Delafield to do anything outside of the norm for us. It's just a matter of timing, really, in order to fix those changes that he had. So I just don't want anybody to get too worried that we're trying to pull something over. So I just wanted to address that. So
Any questions?
I'll clarify just one thing on the fencing. It really just says, our condition is perimeter security fencing shall be provided for safety and electronic surveillance. That's kind of the statement. So there is some flexibility on the fencing, I would say. I know for the development that's further to the east there is no fencing, necessarily that it's not security fencing all the way around it, But there may be a location within the town someday, who knows, that we would want that and be concerned about security fencing. Part of it is we don't have a police force that can be out there policing this all the time, It's a little bit, they're gonna buy these places and they're gonna be potentially at risk because we won't have a police force out there. That's I think that was part of the discussion when we talked about, when we put that into our self-storage code itself, is like, okay, how far do we want to go with security fencing?
Yeah, but there's flexibility based on discussions with the applicant and yourself and input of the plan commission on how far we want to go with the fencing based on
Right.
the code that we're written, so.
It doesn't say that you have to have it, but they just have to, and they are providing a fencing, so if someone went by, they could see that there is fencing. It's 5 foot high, it's 3 rails, so it's not like someone can't get through it, and you can't, you have my understanding is no gates. There will be no gate to get in and out of this, so someone can drive right off of 18 and go down in.
At 2 o'clock in the morning, there's no controls of somebody being there.
No controls,
Does the Village of Summit have anything to say on this?
Or Genesee or Ottawa? There's 4 corners.
Yeah.
No,
It's right on their border, that's why I'm asking.
yeah. I'm sure they could have commented if they wanted to, but I haven't heard anything, so.
And they're aware of it.
I think technically we've.
I'm not
figured out
sure
that
if
they
they're
don't have to
aware
give
of it.
Notices of anything that is, for the other 3 jurisdictions would.
No, I think for me, the big thing is to ensure that we have a very nice-looking development. We're not adversely affecting the residential house to the west. I think we all got to be cognizant that this is directly adjacent to the We Energies facility. But I'm happy to hear that the applicant understands that we need to get more information. There's not enough information to approve this thing. I'd like to see the materials and like to see a lot more of these holes filled in. So I make a motion to table this till we get more information to move this along.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the motion to table the consideration and possible, the motion to table the consideration and possible action by John Burgett is granted. And then the next item, excuse me, on the agenda is 5D, the consideration and possible action on a request from Rob Conley, Lightstriders, Inc., by Mike Ford Construction, for approval of a revised site plan and architectural plan for Lightstriders, Inc., S11W29667, Summit Avenue. Tax key number is DELT 0859999001. Mr. Barbo?
This is deja vu, because we had this discussion in August, I believe it was the August meeting, where we did two things. We did a rezoning of this property from A1 to A2, and that went through with the county and it was approved by the county board, as well as we discussed the construction of a hay barn as part of the site plan of this development. The hay barn, the architecture for the hay barn at the time, if you recall, was it looked like a traditional red barn. It had kind of a drive-through type of entrance exit where you can come in either from the east or west and drive right through it potentially. And it was pretty simple. It was just going to be a hay barn there. And then since that time, they've determined that they would like to change the size of it a little bit and the location. Well, I shouldn't say the location stays the same, but the size and the architecture for this is changing. So this shows you kind of the same location. Looks a little different because it's a little bit more rectangular versus kind of an oblong. And the only entrance that there is from the east into the barn. And so I have some pictures that were provided. So this is what the architecture would look like. It would be, in essence, they would build it into the hill, and so there's a lower level that would have garages, and then that would be used for equipment storage. And then you have an upper level, and the picture on the upper right kind of shows the upper level with a large barn door that can be slid open. That's where you get the access into the hay barn. And this lower picture shows that there is a covered storage area. My understanding is that it shows a lot of like lounge chairs that are on this patio. It's really not going to be a lounging area. It's actually going to be for storage of various items that they use for their facility. There's really no change in the plan of operation. There is an increase in the size of the site. So the upper barn is 2,400 square feet. The covered storage is about 1,440 square feet, and then the lower barn is 1,261 feet. So it increased from 3,200 square feet to about 3,800 square feet total on that. The actual location of the barn is in Waukesha County shoreline jurisdiction because there's a navigable stream to the west. And so what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be giving a recommendation to the Waukesha County staff on this. But we have this opportunity to review it and provide any input to them and any conditions that we want to impose on them, and then they will incorporate it into their approval process. Generally, for the drainage, the drainage always kind of came from south to north on this. It'll kind of remain the same. They're going to kind of divert the water around the building so that it basically is going to get to the same place. They're not going to increase the amount of area that would be draining that way. There will be some hard surfaces, obviously with the roof, but the general location of the drainage will be the same. And as you see that the architectural has made a change on that. And you saw in the lower 4 feet is going to have kind of that fieldstone wainscoting around the lower level a little bit to give it some character. So in my review of this, I don't think that any adjacent property owners will be negatively affected by the grading. I'll defer comments on the architecture to the Plan Commission because in essence you folks act as the Architectural Control Committee. So if everything is in order, I'd recommend that the Plan Commission make a positive recommendation to the Waukesha County to approve the site development plans prepared by SEH. It's an undated plan that was in your packets there. And the architectural plans for the Life Striders hay barn, subject to the barn meeting all the county requirements. And an erosion control plan be submitted to the building inspector for approval at the time that they take out a building permit, because there was no erosion control plan included in that. Questions, comments?
Is there, excuse me, do we know with respect to lighting and how this is, like, it's not clear from the lights that are in the picture.
Do you want to come up and speak on the lighting? That's one thing that was not addressed, so.
Mike Ford, Ford Construction, Brookfield, Wisconsin. Address? 43 North 163rd Street. The renderings are pretty close. I did request they weren't supposed to be used, but
That's all I had. Sorry.
well, there's elevations.
Yeah. I didn't, sorry.
That's not the
Didn't
question.
get that on those, so.
Oh, well, there's elevations. They're nice. The only minor change is just the garage doors don't have as much glass, but the lighting it's a facility that's largely volunteers. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lifestriders. A pretty cool organization. I like to say everyone's one step removed. Somebody knows somebody there. So there's a lot of volunteers, and they just want safety. They want to be able to see. The building's primary function is to store hay. The reason the basement was put in was we had a consultant basically say, don't store hay on a slab. So there's a wood deck above the basement area to help the hay so it doesn't go bad. The lighting is just for safety. There's a lot of volunteers. They have to feed the horses 24/7. So that's the main function of it. Is there more specific questions I can answer?
As far as just what are the types of lights?
There's can lights as shown in the perimeter. And then there's the sconces there. And it's just to light up the area around it for safety reasons.
And it's just gonna mainly light up the Lifestyle property, right? It's not gonna light up the neighbors.
Yeah, it's a really well screened. I mean, you guys can speak to that, but it's in the back of the property. There's shouldn't be anyone who can see any of these lights anywhere. It faces the inside of their facility. It's really nicely screened. And it did move slightly downhill. It's a very minor, it moved about 20 feet downhill from the last time you guys saw it. So it's more concealed than it was last time.
As far as the lighting goes, I mean, the can lights, you don't see the actual light because it's
Right.
obviously up in the
Cut off,
can. And
yeah.
then the sconces, typically the lights are hidden by the shield of the sconce, and they're just lighting up if my understanding of lighting. We don't have the details on the lighting, but it would just light up the building itself and not shine out any more than whatever they have
Right.
out there now. I don't
Like bright.
recall exactly what.
It's bright. I drive by it all the time.
The normal floodlight, that's all over the barn, so, I mean, that barn's been there a long time, so,
Right.
and that arena, so.
I like that they have the garage doors separate now. If I remember right back in August, we were concerned with storing equipment in with the hay.
Correct.
And it looks like that's been separated now, and that's,
There's no interior stairs. The plan set that was given shows that. So yes.
And then that exterior area, that's still gonna be storage of things out there?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what that's gonna be for, or?
Farm implements, manure spreader. They wanted the fieldstone. It's a pretty utilitarian building. They dressed it up like that. But yeah, it's farm stuff. A hay bale I'm not super familiar with farms, so hay bale elevator thing, stuff like that. They have a lot of stuff stored kind of out and about like any farm would, and they just want to tighten it up, get it clean, get their yard looking better, that type of stuff.
Is there a way that we can, excuse me, make sure that you're approving the lights, just so we don't have any unpleasant surprises?
Make that a condition of the approval, or have them submit the lights to, they're gonna have to get an electrical permit for the lights through their building inspector. Or electrical permit probably for this site. It's gonna have electricity
There's a small,
inside, I'm sure. There'll be some lighting inside.
they wanted a 100 amp service, and I was like, you can't, it has to be a 200, you can't make, so they literally just lights is all they want for electric. So, yes, there will be a new service that goes to it.
You wanna make it subject to approval at the time that the electrical permit is submitted?
I think whatever you think is the most workable. I just don't want to have something that,
No, No, I think it would be good to have, you know, at least town staff review the lighting plan to concur that,
Okay. So you wanna do that
yeah, I'll do that as part of,
Now.
yeah,
right away?
if there are no other questions.
besides the erosion,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to recommend to the Waukesha County a positive recommendation with the condition that an erosion control plan is submitted to the town building inspector for approval at the time the building permit is issued, and that at the time the electrical permit is requested, that a lighting plan is provided to the town engineer for review.
second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. And then the final matter for consideration is consideration and possible action on the adoption of an ordinance to create section 18.06, sub 13 of the Town of Delafield Municipal Code regarding design standards for outdoor lighting in residential subdivisions. Mr. Bevel?
I have nothing, the proposed ordinance was in your packet there. It's basically written by our attorney. So that is ready to go, unless you have some modifications of any language that you want to consider, or any comments that you want to make. I will say one of the things, I think I mentioned this in my report, I'll just reiterate, is that, you know, this can be a first step. I mean, Supervisor Ogden indicated that this could be a first step, but we've been working on lighting on and off for probably the last 5-6 years. It seems like we try to, you know, we used to have a subcommittee working on it, and it's very cumbersome. It's not an easy animal to get your hands around, and there's lots of codes out there and lots of opinions as to what it should be. And so this particular code gets something in place for the new subdivision, you know, and if really the town board or someone else wants to move it a little bit further, then they can do that, but it's gonna take probably a longer time frame before that gets approved and gets through the system here. So the idea is, let's get this in, let's get something in place, so at least we have something to kind of, at least for the Thomas Farm development, we can implement it for that.
I would like to see this go to even building permits, when somebody's doing outside landscaping and a permit's been approved, that they have this type of thing. I know, I have a neighbor who just did a major landscaping, and they've got to have 150 lights in their backyard. Nothing that could have been done about that at this point.
Correct. And this may not deal with that either, even if if this went for the whole town. I mean, they could still meet that requirement if some of those landscape lights are just, you know, small wattage lighting.
Correct.
You know, I think we're trying to get away from the ones that people are pointing all over the place. They're close to the lot line. They're letting it spill in over the lot lines. Really, the big issue is this glare. You know, no one wants the glare. Oh, I can see that light. It's right. Feels like it's right, going right into my eyes.
I think
that's one
this
of
is
the big
absolutely
ones.
wonderful, and I agree with what somebody said. It probably doesn't go far enough, or cover enough of the scope of the town of Delafield, but, yeah, the idea of it is great.
No, it's a good first cut, and I think it starts laying out the opportunity to start educating the public on lighting, and, you know, as they see what good lighting looks like versus, you know, poor lighting. And, you know, I think it really comes down to education, and You know, unfortunately, that there are folks who have, you know, moved into this community from other communities where, you know, safety is having things, you know, lit up like a prison versus, you know, when you are out here, you know, when it's dark, it's a little bit different than, you know, having things lit up. And I think it's just a matter of, you know, communicating that and starting to educate people on, you know, the use of their lighting. And I think this is a good first step at least kind of laying out some basic guidelines. So I would recommend that we approve this and send this to the town board.
One question, it has a reference to new developments, and then in the fourth whereas, it has properties within the development. And so, I want to make sure, when we're referring to new developments, I mean, could that technically refer to any construction?
Correct. Oh,
So this-
construction?
Correct.
Um,
I'm just, because I know, and so, I mean, I'm just asking whether that's a possibility or whether that's the intent, because, you know, if the word development isn't defined, I mean, it sounds like property use is plural and development is single, but I'm just pointing out that there could be a question of whether or not this does apply, or whether we want somehow to change it to apply to all new construction, or is that something, you know, I'm just pointing out, if you get someone who's building a new house,
Yeah,
there's not many properties, but, you know,
Yeah, we wrestled with this back and forth, and it became very difficult to define what was new construction, you know, and, you know, is somebody doing an extensive remodel, you know, new construction, or I mean, the idea and the thought process was to be proactive regarding the development along I-94, and to put this in the new subdivisions and new developments and get, you know, to try to protect that area, and say, hey, you know, we want your lights shielded, we don't want, you know, glare, and try to protect that, and then educate other folks, and then, you know, just kind of see how it goes. But you know, the issue is we have 40 hours of contracted police service, and we don't have the enforcement mechanism to have, you know, somebody to go out there at, you know, 10, 11 o'clock at night to start shooting, you know, light meters. And that's where it becomes very, you know, difficult as far as, you know, enforceability of this thing. You know, if you look at the other communities in the area that have lighting ordinances, they all have, you know, full-time police forces that, you know, can go out there and, you know, check the ohms and check the foot candles, and the town just doesn't have that capability. And I don't necessarily think that the town taxpayers are willing to pay for that kind of, you know, service. I think that we're very, you know, frugal to that point, that, you know, we just, you know, hopefully, you know, I mean, I hate that we even have to talk about this. It's a shame people can't just be neighborly and, you know, turn their lights down and respect, you know, their neighbors. But, you know, this is a good first start, and then, you know, obviously there's an educational component to it.
Can this be put on the HOAs?
Yeah, and, you know, recently we did have an HOA that, you know, did kind of modify their, you know, bylaws to add some of this stuff in. So I think that's, you know, definitely to use that as a model and start talking to these HOAs and educating them on lights and lighting, and just to be respectful that, hey, you don't need to keep your lights on 24/7, 365, and, you know, watch the spotlights, and, you know, be respectful to your neighbors, and let's.
It takes a lot of the enforcement off, too.
Well, that's the thought. The thought was that we don't have a police force. We'll put this in the subdivision code. We'll try to put the onus on the HOAs to enforce it, and that,
That's great.
so,
I mean,
I
it seems like A
think-
is more easily enforceable because it's the 3 feet
right.
issue, it's, C.
What stops a homeowner in Thomas Farms from putting up spotlights a year from now? A year after they've moved in?
The HOA.
These are the guidelines to build, but is there something that they can't do that after the fact?
This is where I struggle, because I'm in favor, I have a problem with a neighbor that lights up an entire lake in front of me. to the
Right.
point where my bedroom's, and I work in communities that have these and do lighting in communities that have, and I struggle with where do you stop this and who's it targeted at? Is it targeted at developers and controlling street lights, but outdoor lighting on the development side, or is it targeted at homeowners? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter, it's an ordinance. If there's more than 0.2 foot candles past the lot line, it doesn't matter who did what, it's against the ordinance. I guess I'm just trying to understand how you implement it, who you get it out to, how you apply it, how you police. I don't know. I know why it's hard.
Well, for this one, we're actually, I mean, we're trying to be proactive to get it into the developer's agreement and get it into their covenants. And so it is the HOA that kind of polices that. So they kind of police themselves. But, you know, for the existing subdivisions, we're a little, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of homeowners associations that would not want to touch this. Doesn't want to touch lighting, just like we're having a trouble with it. And it's their neighbors that, they don't even want to go to their neighbors and say, you have too many lights, you know. So you said your neighbor has, I mean,
Right.
you know, you could either have the town go there and try to be, you know, the one that tries to enforce it, or would you want to go over there and tell your neighbor, hey, you got too many lights there? It's a kind of a sensitive issue.
No question.
Unless we can get some groundswell of, you know, of a reasonable code that can be enforced and that people will follow, you know, and you really got to have some community backing on something like that. That's my opinion, but it's not easy to get.
This is great, and that's the only reason I brought up, can this be on permits? You know, somebody puts up a new garage, we can't control that they're putting on this type of lighting. They're going to put on, they can put up spotlights, motion detector spotlights.
I mean,
Defeats the whole
I mean,
purpose.
I think we actually wanted to promote kind of the motion lighting rather than the all-night lighting in like the ones that are just, you know, you got the lamp out front, and then you've got the lighting on the garage and on the house, and you got 6 lights on the house. But if they were all motion lights, maybe that's okay, you know. But
World-class lighting just put lights in the front of my house and 2 of my neighbors' homes, and they've done work for me before in other homes. They said they no longer put timers in. They are dusk to dawn only. That's all they'll put in. And so now we have 3 homes out of 4 in our court. We have just the front of the house lit. The backs are dark, but the front of the houses, which face each other, are all lit
all night.
all night.
I know.
Yes. And none of us like it, but that's all they would do.
You gotta do something, you gotta take a stance.
Well, no, I understand that, and we all said the same thing, but
But that's not going to be more than 0.2 foot candles at your property line. Those are lights that
it's
don't
not.
have.
No,
any-
this is
Right.
against the
That's-
house, and it's not affecting anybody, but
That's where I
the point is that's a lot of extra light all of a sudden
It is.
in our division, just in our little court.
I just want to note too, I recall when we discussed this previously, when we talked about a prior version of the ordinance, one discussion was if there's something shining in someone's bedroom window, a nuisance. And so,
Yes.
that would be something, I remember that
That's-
Commissioner Fitzgerald discussed,
That-
you know,
that-
that's one potential enforcement mechanism would be,
That was, you know, a suggestion by our attorney, is to call it a nuisance, and those are always hard to, you know, you gotta prove those.
so you, yeah, if
So-
you do, I
so
mean,
it's-
and there's definitely, but I think that was one way they said if people had to deal
Right.
with enforcement issues, that they could raise it as a
They
nuisance.
could do that, yeah.
At the end of the day, there's no way to stop calls from coming to the police and to resources that I mean, it's going to boil down to that. There's not a way to limit that from being the result of any ordinance that's put in. I don't know.
Hopefully going to the homeowners association would take some of that heat off.
Yeah, and
If they do anything about it.
well, and that's kind of the goal, and, you know, this is, you know, in future subdivision, future developments would be, you know,
I think it's,
part of the deal, and, you know, when it comes to the Welshire Farms, we said no dusk to dawn lighting.
I think you'll
so-
get developers to abide by this, and I think you'll limit the amount of light that are designed by the developer in a subdivision. Like, there's no doubt that will work. But
Right.
to Mike's point, like, somebody moves in a year later, puts a floodlight on, gonna be hard to
So,
enforce.
one option, and I don't know if this is, because we're giving it to the town board, is, sub 13, could it say, it says outdoor lighting shall be constructed, could it just be and maintained as far? I mean, wouldn't that address the year later?
Yeah, it would.
Because I just don't want it to be constructed as the initial construction, that's how I would read it, but if it's references and maintain. That's one suggested,
If we read it that way, so is somebody else.
Yeah, we could,
I think it's a fairly simple addition.
Yeah, definitely run that past our, our legal folks before the town board meeting.
That's the only piece that, I don't know, want to run past the lawyer as well as far as just what that's, is it more than one house, or, and I'm not trying to, I'm trying to avoid interpretation issues for the town in the future.
The thought in this ordinance will only be in the land, for new residential subdivision. It's in chapter, that's why it's in chapter 18.
Okay.
So it's not gonna be retroactive or,
Oh, no, I
you know.
understand that, but I'm saying if there's something, we're occasionally getting cul-de-sacs, other places that are being built or developed other than, there's not just one development that's.
Are you saying any, I mean, really, this is addressing any new subdivisions?
subdivisions.
So if there's a subdivision way on the south side somewhere, this would apply, because it's in chapter 18.
Okay.
So it would apply, but it doesn't apply to existing ones.
Understood. No, I'm just saying as far as.
We can encourage that, and we can tell people, this is our code, you're grandfathered in, but just, this is where we're going, this is the direction we're going, and
If somebody buys a piece of land and builds a new home, this would not be under this,
that's where it gets a little tricky, is.
right? Because it's just a single home, it's not a subdivision.
How long is that period gonna be, like Thomas Farm, if someone doesn't build buys a lot tomorrow and doesn't build for 10 years, we still count it, but what about the subdivision that's out there? I don't know if there's not a lot of vacant land in subdivisions in the town of Delafield as it is
Oh, I
right
see
now,
what
but-
you're saying, right.
But I mean, if it's
Woodridge,
which has been in
Hawks
place
Nest
for how
has
many
empty
years?
land.
Yeah, Hawks Nest,
That's a good,
Hawks Nest has one?
I think they have an empty lot,
One lot?
two empty
Two
lots.
lots?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So
How do you say that
I
to
would
one?
say that
Yeah,
that's not a new subdivision. It's not part of the subdivision. It's an old subdivision that doesn't fall into this necessarily. Because this is chapter 18, this is the subdivision and development code. So it's really about getting this, this requirement then put into like the deed restrictions and put it in the developer's agreement and things like that, so we can get those in there.
I get it.
You can ask her if you can speak.
Question, go ahead.
Any new, or it's in the south side and
Good question. I don't know if I can, it's hard to answer that. I mean, sometimes the lighting code is a separate code, and I think that's what it is now.
For the commercial, yeah.
Our commercial is in like section 14 or something like? 11, which is a separate section.
I don't know, I mean, if you don't know, it's, as you're sitting.
I don't know, I mean, once again, I don't think it's a zoning. See, I don't think lighting is zoning necessarily. It's not a zoning requirement. Not a dimensional requirement, it's kind of a different animal, shall we say. So if it was put into 11, maybe, as a residential section of that, I'd have to defer to Eric on that one to see.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, we've discussed this and gone back and forth, and really, it becomes very difficult to define what new construction is moving forward, and that's why we didn't put it in chapter 11. That's why we
Yeah.
decided to present this chapter 18 and put the onus on the HOA.
And that's what we want to do. That's the most effective right now,
Right.
you know.
That has to be addressed, I mean,
Right.
it can't be the Wild Wild West. As far as no rules with the new developments. That would be untenable.
That's the way we have it now.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm,
saying-
no, I'm
Wild
saying, well, that's right, I think we don't want that to go any.
Okay.
That's what I've heard
Okay,
at
that's-
least, is that we don't want
That's
it
the
to go
policy
into-
decision to be made is,
Yeah,
do
from the
you
town
want this
board.
or
Town
not?
board's
And
decision ultimately.
Yep, absolutely, it's not ours.
so I'm sorry, Terry, the answer is if we put it in 11, then we can't really, it's there, but we can't make a developer put it in his deed restrictions. Or that's where we're stuck a little bit there. This one, we might be able to, we can now get it into some of those documents.
Motion to recommend to the town board to adopt this ordinance.
I'll second that.
Do you want to have that amendment?
With the maintenance or maintain addition or consideration by the attorney?
Yeah, consideration of that amendment, and you can advise at the town board or advise in the report to the town board if that's available. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And any further discussion? Okay, and then I'd like to welcome Michelle Litkey to the town as our new administrator, and so thanks, this is her first meeting today, so thank you for joining us and for coming on board with our team. And so, with respect to the next meeting, is it, the 6th is a Thursday? It is. And so is it February 4th then is the
It
next
should be
meeting?
February. So it's whatever the Tuesday is, I'm
Yeah, that's
sorry.
the 4th, yeah.
That's my error.
Okay, and so then the next meeting is February 4th, 2005, and
2025,
2025, did I say that?
yeah.
I'm in the wrong year, okay.
A motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all.
The 6th is a Thursday.
I only knew because I plugged it in before the meeting, I was reading this and I looked and I was like, oh.
Tim, is there a reason that they couldn't withdraw that storage building request? That was